Being here so bright and very, very early. Actually not so bright. It was so dark this morning. I'm very pleased that you're all here for our very first parent topic of the school year. And this year we're doing things a little bit differently, and we are inviting our students to come in and join us as well, which is why we're doing this at 6:45 so we can be done by the time the kids have to get to class. So we're trying this a little bit of a different format. We're always looking for new ways to communicate with our parents and our students to get the message out about things that we feel are important for you guys as you wrap up the second half of your high school career. So we're really thrilled that you're able to join us this morning. These are just a quick list of the things that we're going to be talking about today. First of all, just some nuts and bolts about what it means to be a junior at Arrowhead High School. We're going to talk quite a bit about testing. That seems to be a major piece of what happens during the junior year. Should I can't hear you. Can't hear you. Okay. We're going to talk quite a bit about testing. We're going to also talk about post-high school options. What are some different paths that students might take after they leave us? We'll talk about college admission basics, and if I had to guess, I would say that's probably why most of you are here, is to hear about that and the testing, because that does seem to be a major focus during junior year. So we hope to get you some initial information and get you pointed in the right direction, build the foundation for more detailed information that comes later in the school year. We will talk about Naviance, which is a tool that we use for our students to explore colleges and explore careers, as well as keep track of all the searches that they might do, portfolios that they might have. So we will explain a little bit about Naviance and how that is used here at school. And then we'll talk about the junior conference, and that's really your opportunity to have a one-on-one sit-down with your child's counselor and ask all those questions that you've been thinking about and get some really, really solid resources and have it individualized to your students so that they know how to proceed with their post-secondary options, what they'll do after they leave us. So those are kind of the topics we'll talk about today. We will be respectful of your time. We appreciate everybody here being here on time, so we will get you out of here on time, and especially for the kids that have to get to first hour class. So the class of 2017, you guys are 542 students strong. That's a little bit of a smaller class than we've seen. I think our typical class at Arrowhead usually is anywhere between 550 and 600, so a little bit of a class on the small side. Currently, there are 32 students in the class that have a 4.0, maybe even some people in this room. We will usually see that number go down every semester as semester grades are posted and people get that first B. Usually by the time students graduate, the number of 4.0 students is not quite that high. As you know, and this has been the case for several years now, we do not provide rank in class. We don't even calculate it anymore. This was a deliberate move on the part of Arrowhead because we saw that many more competitive high schools were moving in that direction. It is felt that ranking in class disadvantages kids in the admissions process because they could have a terrific GPA. They could have a 3.75 GPA and still maybe only rank in that top quarter of the class. Whereas at, a smaller high school or a less competitive high school, that 3.75, that could put them in the top 10% of the class. So we felt like that class rank was not giving a really accurate picture of just how strong academically that student was. So we have eliminated that. When college applications are filled out, there's an opportunity for students to indicate that their college does not rank. So it's not like they're going to be missing a vital piece of information. Scholarship organizations have been a little bit slower to get on board with not ranking in class. We're finding that they are still asking for it. So sometimes we can provide, if they request it, a statement that says our high school does not rank in class. And then that kind of forces them to look more holistically at the student and look at other things like the rigor of their courses, their co-curricular activities, and those types of things. August of 2016, what we mean by this is that courses that a student completes through the end of next year's summer school, so by August, those are the grades that will be on their transcript when they send them to colleges. So we hear many students say, well, colleges won't see my senior year grades. Well, that's true and not true. It's true initially that those grades are still going to be grades in progress at the time that they're applying to colleges. The colleges will see their senior year courses because they do ask on the application and they do show up on the transcript, courses in progress. but your last chance to actually have grades on there that the colleges are going to see when they make that admission decision are the grades that you will have through the end of summer school next summer. So that's something to consider if there's a class that you'd like to repeat, or maybe try to boost your grade in that you've taken previously. Terrific time to do that, get that lower grade off your transcript before your applications begin. Let's talk a little bit about the transcript. The transcript, of course, is the official academic record, and this is a permanent record. You know, when we were kids, we would always hear about this is going to go on your permanent record, and it sounded so ominous. But what the transcript is, it's really your academic permanent record. We have students, former students that come in 10, 15 years, they were here 10 or 15 years ago, and they still need a copy of that transcript because they're going back to college or they're changing jobs. So it's an important document, and it reflects what you have done here. So on your transcript, you will see that you get 1 credit for every class. We don't generally do half credits for our classes. Generally, every single class is a credit. And of course, there are specific requirements, which we will talk about in just a little bit, the 50 credits and how those are comprised. You do not get credit if you repeat a class. So if you took geometry as a freshman and you didn't do so well and you decided you wanted to retake it as a sophomore, you won't get credit for that geometry class twice. The higher grade will prevail, and you will get that, you will get the boost in the grade, but you will actually not get credit for it 2 times. We will go through your transcript with you in great detail at your junior conference, and your counselor will sit down and go through area by area. What have you taken? What do you still need to take? How does that level of rigor look for the colleges that you are looking at? And we'll spend a lot of time on that document at that time. And there are some new graduation policies as well that have changed and evolved over the years. For example, 3 years of math for this graduating class being one of the main changes, and we'll talk a little bit about some of those in a bit. Just to review the graduation requirements, 50 credits are what you need to graduate from Arrowhead. Sometimes we hear people say, well, you know, my friend goes to a different high school and they only need 24 credits. Well, what you remember, though, is that at that high school where they have 24 credits, maybe their classes are only worth half a credit. So their 24 is actually equal to 48 Arrowhead credits. So we make it simple, 1 credit per class. 8 English, 6 social studies, 6 science, and now 6 math. And then 3 physical education, 1 health, 2 fine arts, 2 career and technical credits. That can be anything in the business area, the engineering area, or the family and consumer ed area. And the rest of the credits can be drawn from any of those areas. Foreign language is not required for graduation, although it is highly valued by most colleges. So a couple of changes, as I mentioned, math. This graduating class is the first one to need 6 credits of math. So we're excited about this. We think that this prepares students more for colleges. And truthfully, most of our college-bound kids were taking 3, if not 4, if not more years of math anyway. So this really reflects what our students are already doing. For the class of 2018, if some of you have younger children, with this year's sophomore class and beyond, if they repeat a class, it'll show up twice on their transcript because we want that transcript to be a really accurate historical representation of what they've done. But the grade of R for repeat will show up where they originally took the class. So again, with our example of geometry, they took geometry their freshman year, got a D, unfortunately, retook it again as a sophomore and got a B. Those B's will be on there, but back freshman year, it'll show R for repeat. So then when we look at that, we can easily tell that that class has been repeated. We always want to keep an eye, too, on university requirements, and our counselors do work very hard on keeping abreast of all of those changes at the university level, which colleges are requiring what. For example, University of Minnesota in the last few years, they switched to a 4-year math requirement. So now students who want to attend the University of Minnesota need 4 years of math in high school. So we do try very hard to keep on top of those things. And each year is a brand new year, of course. We really stress the importance of students getting to know their counselors. We enjoy this. We love our students. We think that it's just so neat for us to get to know who they are as a person, but it also benefits them. So kids, get to know your counselor. I know you guys are juniors. Maybe a lot of you haven't been in to see your counselor or maybe just for a quick schedule change, get to know them a little bit. The more we know you, the more we can assess your needs and guide you toward your future. But also when it comes down to those important letters of recommendation, I know that the best letters I write are the ones for the kids I know the best. Not because I like them better, but because I know them and I can give more details as to, you know, their personality and insights as to what their character is like and so forth. So it really is a beneficial thing to do. And for that reason, we do encourage a junior conference. We will be beginning these next week, and then we go through the end of April. So there is more than adequate time for every single student in the junior class to have a sit-down conference with their parents and their counselor. And we'll talk a little bit toward the end of the presentation, give you some steps as to how to get that on the books and set up. And then the last point I want to make before I turn it over to Mrs. Middich, who's going to talk about testing, is really, parents, have your students own the process, and I know that's really hard. As parents, we sometimes have a hard time getting them to own anything, you know, even like picking up their own stuff, which is lying all over the entire house. Am I right? Yeah. But this process is theirs, and this maybe is a big step toward maturity for them, that they can really be the driver in this situation. You, of course, are the support. You're the person maybe who's going to look over that college application and check for typos. You're certainly the person that's going to have that debit card out when they need to pay that admissions or that applications fee. But really, your student should own the process, and that's going to feel good for them. It's going to be less stress off of you. And colleges, they're very uncanny. They can always tell when mom has been the one behind this, has typed up the application, or has you know, over-edited the essay just a little bit too much, and it's a little bit over-polished. They can kind of spot those a mile away, and we don't want that to happen. Okay, we want their opinion of your student to be that this is a very authentic, kid-driven application. So we always stress that. So I'm going to turn this over to Mrs. Middich, and she's going to talk all about testing.
If any of you would like to move closer to the front, we have plenty of space here. No, okay. Well, there were lots of prizes awarded to those who sat in the front. They're good prizes. I guess we can use those tonight. I'm Kathy Middich. I am a counselor here at North Campus, and the three counselors here together combined, we are a seasoned group. We have lots of experiences because we have all been here a long time. The real benefit to that is watching the growth of how universities and colleges have changed, as well as the testing process. With testing, it's kind of fun now to look in this crowd, because we have shifted to this type of presentation where we want the students to come along because we no longer can go to their classrooms. Normally, when we go into classrooms and we talk about testing, we see some heads spud on the desk, we see the eyes roll back, not too much interest. When we do our parent presentations, the parents sit very straight. They're very interested in the testing components. And now we've got you all mixed in here together. And the hope by having all of you come is that maybe each of you might hear some things differently. We're here to generate conversation. We're here to share information. Mrs. Rodenkirk indicated that we don't make this stuff up. We do spend hours every year attending workshops and conferences in servicing about all of these subjects. Just last week, the 6 counselors attended the University of Wisconsin workshop, where every UW school tells us information about what they're looking for on the ACT, about what their application changes are, what their topics are. Yesterday, Mr. Ward and I went to an ACT workshop where we were learning about the changes and modifications to that. Ms. Rodenkirk was at the College Board workshop learning about the SAT and the AP exams. So we work really hard so that we have the right information to share with you. My piece of the program today is all about testing and all the different components of testing, from the ASVAB all the way down to those AP exams. So we begin testing with the ASVAB, and that is going to be offered to students optionally on October 28th. You have the notes in front of you so you can see when we want the students or the parent to register the student for that ASVAB. The great news about the Armed Service Vocational Aptitude Battery is that test is free. It is a good opportunity for students to get a little bit of an indication of their skills. Where am I at? Also, if the student is interested in the military, it is a required exam before they can enlist. So the sooner they start to take this ASVAB, the sooner they get an idea of what kinds of jobs within the military might be available to me based on my skills. If you're not planning on the military, it's also a golden opportunity to see what should I be working on? Where do my interests tend to lie? Because it does include both academic skills as well as some career direction. Also new to the ASVAB 2 years ago, they do give a basic ACT predictor as well, which sometimes is helpful to see where am I headed. Test preparation. The ASVAB does not have test preparation necessarily, but they do have some great tools. But generally, we get asked a lot of questions about that test preparation component. And there's a quote that the ACT often uses with us, and it is up there. Every time a student goes to class, they're preparing for the ACT. Our curriculum and the test standards for ACT are aligned. So the more academics a student takes, typically the stronger their ACT performance is. The students sometimes, and parents, we sometimes think that the more times we take a test, well then the better we're going to do. And that's not always the case. So we want them to be readers. Read, 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 read is our basic component and our basic mantra as we talk to students about that. We find that students are pretty good readers for basic information, but not so much for recreational purposes. And on the ACT, even the math section has a good deal of reading. So we want them to be doing that. We'd like you to take at least one practice test. We do have practice tests available in our office. We also know that when you go to the ACT website, there is a practice test there. So we'd like you the student to take that practice test and try to simulate test conditions. Probably not so much lounging on your bed while you're keeping an eye on keeping up with the Kardashians, but rather sitting at a wooden chair at the kitchen table, having a timer go off when you have done 60 minutes of math. We like you to do that under simulated test conditions so you put yourself under a little bit of pressure. That's why you go to basketball practices, is that you're putting yourself under some pressure situations. So we want you to do those kinds of things. With my daughter, she loved taking the ACT. And then when she get the results, she loved showing her dad and I, oh, see how good I am at reading? Yet she was not so crazy about those science scores. She always wanted to focus on what she was good at. And I appreciate that. But the bottom line is we need to look at what are our weaknesses. Some students will take the ACT 2-3 times. When you take the ACT, you want to look at those weaknesses and then you want to come up with a game plan. And if our game plan, if we're weak in reading, well then maybe instead of avoiding those literature courses, we want to make sure we're taking those literature courses so that we can address weaknesses and get stronger at them. As much as possible, we like students to be rested, relaxed, and calm. Coming with your supplies is critical. And then we will also have some ACT prep and some review options available. TBA means to be announced. And so as those options become available, our Director of Learning, Mrs. Cassetta, is going to be organizing that. She will roll those out for us and we will get you information about how to do some test prep. I'd like you all to mark your calendars right now. We are going into our second year of the state of Wisconsin mandated testing for the ACT. Jumping right through here, March 1 is the ACT, March 2 is the ACT working keys. Those are both required tests. They are free to the student. That's good news. It's like a sale. Okay, buy one, get one free. Totally free to the students. On March 1 is the test. And that's what the Work Keys tries to measure. Here in the state of Wisconsin, we learned the other day that there's a list on the ACT website under Work Keys. There are dozens of employers who look at the ACT Work Keys if it's provided by a potential employee. Sargento Cheese was a big one. That they're looking at those skills, and students who have that certificate that they are awarded for strong performance on the Work Keys, they look at that as a strength. Some employers also give the Work Key test even to adults so that they can measure, is that student or is that person ready for the workforce? So we've got a win-win here as well. It's a much shorter exam. Students often report they feel like it's a little bit easier because there is some common sense involved on that Work Keys. So those are the two school tests that we're going to be given because of the state of Wisconsin. But we also, here at Arrowhead, have 6 opportunities for students to take the national ACT exam. Those are Saturday morning test administrations, and we are one of the few high schools in the country that give it all 6 of those Saturday mornings. What I caution students about is just because it's here at your high school and you come waltzing in entrance 5 and you're feeling very comfortable, that's why we do it. We want you to be comfortable and relaxed and not have to get up an hour early to travel to Janesville to take it. We want you to take it here in your backyard, in your comfort zone. But we also need you to know, even though you walk in the door and you know us, we are employees on that day of the ACT. So following the rules are very important. We have to follow all ACT rules that day, and so do you. As a student, if you come in and you don't have your driver's license, for example, or an ID, a photo ID, we can't let you take that test. Even though I might see that student every other day, and I know them very well, they cannot take that test unless they follow that ACT protocol, which we'll talk a bit more about. So as you plan for your future, if you know you're in a wedding on June 11th and you can't do it, or you're a runner and you know you have a track meet that day, plan ahead, look ahead at what those dates are. We also share these dates with the coaches statewide. The activities offices also share them and discuss. However, they're not going to cancel events because we've got an ACT. They would expect you as a student and a parent to plan for that. And I'm not sure about this year, but typically prom is on that April ACT date. We don't get to pick when ACT is offered. We must have it on those national test dates. The ACT is accepted by all colleges and universities across the country. Every one of them will now take an ACT. That's a strength to our students because our curriculum is geared toward the ACT. It tests required 4 areas, and the perfect score is a 36. There is on the ACT national test date an optional writing component, a 40-minute writing test. On the state exam, that is not optional. All students must take the writing component. So on the national test date, a student is going to be able to choose ACT with writing or ACT without writing. As you explore during the next several months, you're thinking about what colleges want to see the writing test and what colleges don't require that. That may make your decision. What's the best date to take? That's going to depend sometimes on your curriculum. If a student is taking composition second semester, well then they might want to take an ACT that's later in the school year because they want that writing component instruction a little bit fresher in their mind. Typically, we would say mid to late spring is the best time to take the ACT. However, we have a lot of juniors already signed up for December because they're really looking at taking an ACT Where am I strong? Where am I weak? What do I need to do? Maybe make a schedule change based on what they're learning about themselves on that ACT. When you look at the bottom item there, please make sure when you register for the ACT that the student does that registration, that the student does the career inventory cluster. There will also be some questions that are designed to help you to know what might I want to do, what direction might I go. There's good, valuable things that are on that ACT registration. If the parent does it, then we're just guessing. The material is not going to be as valid as if the student does that registration. You may take the ACT up to 12 times. That is the maximum that ACT allows someone to take their exam. That does include the state mandated exam as well. So 12 is it for the ACT. Super scoring versus score choice. When students register for the ACT, they will have an opportunity to list for free 4 colleges they want to get their score reports. As counselors, we typically would encourage students to have those 4 sent for free to colleges as a part of that registration. Sometimes when they get those score reports, they're going to send you material from the university's honors program, or maybe they're going to send you information about the journalism major because you identified something, or maybe you're scoring fantastic and they're also going to then want to recruit you a bit for some academic strengths. However, some students are shy about doing that because they're worried, well, what if I do better on the next test? Retesting, retaking the ACT does tend to be fruitful for 57% of the students that take the test a second. They tend to go up 1 or more points. Composite. The composite is that like reading and English and math also have individual scores. And that's what we mean by super scoring. If you take the ACT 3 times and you get 3 different composites, you may find a university does super scoring. So they will take your highest math score of the 3. They will take your highest science score of the 3. And therefore, that's a plus for you when they get that super score at the end. If you don't, you will find that the ACT has a fee for everything extra. And we'll show you those fees in just a minute. So that's super scoring versus score choice. If you never have your scores on the registration sent to a university, or you will later on have it sent to those that the ACT and also the SAT, by the way, now they have no penalty for guessing. Okay? It is to your advantage to fill in every question on the ACT when you take that test in October, December, February, March, April, or June. There is a career inventory as well. Don't minimize that. And there's a great snapshot of your skill set. The ACT, when you take it without writing, is $39.50. If you do the optional writing component, it's $56.50. That does allow you those 4 score reports. And also on the bottom, you will see very commonly you need additional score reports that you go to the ACT website and request. Each one is $12 for every school. So if a student has their scores sent nowhere, and then they apply to 4 colleges, that will be an additional $48. A few pointers about the ACT. We have someone here at Arrowhead stand outside and yell at you as you're walking in the door, "Put your cell phone back." Cell phones are one of the major reasons students are dismissed from the testing center. You cannot have a cell phone out at any time in the testing center. On the earlier regular test administration in September, we had to kick a student out. Their score is voided because they went to the restroom. They came out of the restroom. Easy breezy, it was just natural, and they're looking at their cell phone. That is against ACT rules. Leave them in your car. Great idea. I call this my mom hack. To organize your materials the night before. I think this last time about half of our students showed up either with a little Ziploc bag like this one, or they had it in a small backpack. What you have in here, some water for your break, a snack bar for break, your photo ID, your admission ticket, extra batteries for your calculator, pencils, and that approved ACT calculator. Be prepared, be confident. Another thing that goes wrong often is the student waits to print out their admission ticket. You must have this to take the ACT. And your photo ID has to match the photo that's on this admission ticket in terms of, oh yeah, that looks pretty much like it. Doesn't need to be the same picture, but that it needs to be the same person. Don't wait to do that photo upload. Checking on now, moving along to the SAT. The SAT has gone through major revamping, and they're rolling out some of that right away here in October with their PSAT, which is the preliminary test. SAT, popular in some other parts of the country, but they do recognize that depending on where you live, you may be taking an ACT or an SAT. There are charts that will convert student scores for the universities. Nearby, we are never an SAT test site. Less than 10% of our students take the SAT. We did inquire about becoming a test site. They were not interested in us. They don't need another test site in the state of Wisconsin. St. John's Northwestern, Homestead, and Nicolet are the three that are closest to us. But they don't all have the SAT on all the test dates. So who might want to take the SAT? The SAT is required if a student is going to apply to be a National Merit Scholar, or they're going to hope, a strong student might hope that they're going to be a National Merit Scholar. So those students want to make sure they take the SAT. When you look at the colleges that you're interested in, you're also going to find which tests they prefer. If they prefer the SAT, then you might want to take that exam. In addition with that, with the SAT, you're going to want to make sure that you have those scores sent to the appropriate universities as well. That would be a key on that SAT. One note on the SAT, they also offer some SAT subject tests. When you're reviewing colleges and opportunities, you are going to find that some of them want to see some subject tests. Sometimes it's based on a major. So when you review that, that's when you know if you have to register for that. Compass is a computerized inventory of skill sets. They are very important in regards to looking at technical colleges. We are seeing a little bit of a difference. Goodbye, students. Your parents will fill you in. You don't have to go if you have first hour study hall. What a shame you're going to miss my solo in a few minutes. Well, maybe not. With the emergence of the ACT here in the state of Wisconsin, where every student has to take that exam, we are feeling like some of the technical colleges may shy away from the Compass down the road. We don't know that yet, but with the ACT work keys and the Compass, we're finding that some of the technical colleges are not quite as concerned here. AP exam window is May 2nd to the 13th. The Arrowhead website, Mrs. Rodenkirk has done a great job making sure it has all the specific tests and what times they're going to be available to students. So making sure that you're here at 7:30 a.m. for a morning test and 11:30 for an afternoon test. They also have lots and lots of study tools on the website, so you can get some information there, and scores coming directly from that college board. Mrs. Rodekirk is going to finish up with some information regarding after Arrowhead options. Sorry, my mic is sweaty.
It's okay. What about that solo you promised us?
Hello. Some people saw it already. I even danced.
I'm sorry, I inadvertently advanced the slide there. But we want to talk a little bit about options and then talk about the handouts and then kind of wrap up for you. Right now, about 80% of Arrowhead graduates will go on to a four-year university directly after leaving us, and another 10 to 15% will go to a two-year college, a technical college or one of the two-year UW schools. And the rest of the 5 to 10% of students will look at things like apprenticeships, service in the military, or go directly into the workforce. So we try to be very broad in our preparation of our students and present them with all of the options. And again, that's something that we will talk about at junior conferences, and we can really tailor that discussion to where your son or daughter is thinking about heading after they leave us. So we are very mindful of that. On the yellow handout in your packet, it talks a little bit about getting into college. Of course, that's the pertinent subject on everybody's mind. And if you have older children, you've kind of been through that already with them. But this kind of goes over some of the factors that colleges are looking for. Academic preparation has been and remains the top thing that colleges are looking at, the number one factor. And so by that we mean not only their grade point average, how well they've done in their classes, but also what kind of classes they've taken. Have they really taken a high level of rigor? So for students that want to go to UW-Madison, and we hear that a lot of them do, Madison is looking beyond that grade point average. They want to see students who have availed themselves of the opportunities that we have here. Now, that may not necessarily mean that they've taken every AP out there, but it means that they've taken a good, solid academic load all 4 years. And that's very much what colleges are looking for. And then the ACT score, of course, or SAT, but primarily in the Midwest we do see ACT. That's the other piece of that academic preparation they're looking for, because the ACT and now the SAT as well is very curriculum based and is very much tied into how well the student has mastered their high school curriculum. So that's primarily what colleges are looking for, because they want students who are academically prepared to hit the ground running and be successful as soon as they get there. So that's really what they're looking for. The other factors, and we call these secondary factors, I always like to say to my students that these factors will not rescue a really bad application, but they will make a good application a great application. And those are really enhancers. So things like, what kind of experiences have they had outside of the classroom? Have they done co-curricular activities here at school? Have they done things in the community? Have they worked? Have they volunteered? What are some maybe things that they've done that are really unique? And we see that particularly with our very selective colleges. They're looking for students who kind of have that X factor, who've done something really unusual that other students have not done, rather than checking the boxes, well, I've done a sport and I've done a club and I've volunteered at my church, and those are terrific things. But if you're looking at the more competitive colleges, they want students who have initiated something really out of the ordinary. So those are the secondary factors that they are looking for, and that is an important part of your application. I would certainly encourage you to talk to your sons and daughters about starting to put together an activity resume. What have they done since freshman year? What are honors and awards that they've received? What are some things they've been involved in, both in school and in the community? The technical colleges are covered in the green handout. We're very fortunate that we have a fantastic technical college system in the state of Wisconsin. So it goes into some of those benefits in terms of job placement, salaries earned by graduates, and so forth. So these are really good options. Your child's counselor has more information about that. And again, that's something we can get into real detail during the junior conference if they would want to do that. Many, many ways to look at exploring colleges and universities and different things. Obviously, taking a tour is going to be their best hands-on opportunity to really see that college in action and see what they're like. But also, of course, the internet, and there are many, many websites out there that will help students search for colleges. Naviance is one of them. We'll talk about Naviance in a little bit, but College Board has some great options where students can go in and search for schools based on what criteria they're looking for, whether it's the size of the school, the distance from home, what majors are offered. So all of those tools are readily available. College fairs, of course, we had our WEF here last week. Hopefully some of you were able to attend that, and that's a great chance to see a lot of college admissions officers all in one place. They also come to Arrowhead during lunch hour, so almost every single day between now and spring, out in the cafeteria, there will be at least 1 or 2 college reps from the different schools that kids can just come up during their lunch and chat with them, gather materials. Those are a terrific opportunity for kids to get to know the colleges a little bit. Of course, you see the books out there, the 366 best colleges. We have some of those resources if you'd like to look at those or check those out. We have those, and there are really specialized ones too, you know, books for kids going into the arts, or best colleges for students with learning disabilities, or just really as specific as you want to get. And so those ranking guides are out there. And of course, coming to presentations like this, we hope will add to your knowledge base and to your students' knowledge base about what the options are that are out there. Naviance is a tool that we started using a few years ago, and like I said, it really helps kids organize. It helps them do their search, but then they can save things to like a locker or portfolio. College searches that they've done, majors that they've explored. So we will be getting more information to kids on how to do that, but in your Peach handout there, it goes into Naviance. One tool that I would hope that they would use on Naviance is called the, oh boy, I'm drawing a blank. Supermatch, thank you. It's the College Supermatch, where they put in what they're looking for, and it's going to give them a recommended list of colleges for them to look at. And so that's something that we really would encourage them to do. At your junior conference, as I said, this is a 40-minute sit-down meeting with your child and your counselor and yourself. We will go over that transcript in detail and talk a little bit about that. We will find out from your child what exactly they're hoping to do after they leave us and explore those ideas a little bit. We'll talk about what they might be thinking of taking senior year, particularly for the junior conferences that are in the spring. They've already picked their classes, so we can review those and talk about what classes might make sense, what you might want to take out or put back in. We'll review testing. Specifically, we want to make sure that they are signed up for at least one other ACT besides the all-school test date. We'll share with you a whole packet of resources, a UW guide, a technical colleges guide, all of those good things. We'll talk about the application process, what to do when, and we'll talk about what is a good college visit, what does it consist of, what should you be doing, as well as cover the basics about financial aid, because I know that's foremost on everybody's mind, and so we'll kind of get you pointed in the right direction with that. The very, very best way to schedule a junior conference is to use our dedicated email address for that, juniorconferences@arrowheadschools.org. And Mrs. Morrison, our wonderful guidance secretary, checks that regularly, checks our calendar, gets those scheduled in. We will do them every day of the week except for Wednesday. Wednesdays with the shorter periods, they're a little bit harder to get in, so we do them the other 4 days of the week. We allow 40 minutes for this. We understand sometimes questions come up and they may run a little bit longer, but we do try to limit them to 40 minutes whenever possible. We'll start next week, take a little bit of a break around the change of semester, restart them in the spring, and go through the end of April. The last thing in your folder there's an additional handout. The Fab 5 websites, great resources for you to check out. Questions to ask on a campus visit. Or I do want to preface that by saying maybe it's questions your child should ask on a campus visit. I have been guilty of being that parent because I kind of know what I want them to ask, so sometimes I would jump in, and I shouldn't have done that. So again, it's about the kid owning the process. So those are questions for thought, get them moving in the right direction on those campus visits. You'll also see a little blurb on there about some other topics that we will be offering this year, so just to kind of get that in your head that these are topics we will be covering. And again, please schedule your junior conference. And here is our contact information. It is also on the Arrowhead website. The three of us, myself, Mrs. Middich, and Mr. Ward, are here for individual questions, and we thank you for your attendance and your participation today in being here and being attentive, and I hope you all have a great day. Thank you.
Feel free if you have questions, we're here. And that's Mr. Stuber from the South Campus.
South Campus.